My name is Jonathan Goforth with Keller Williams Platinum Partners. Let's talk about the housing market, where we are right now, and let's make some predictions for 2023. We're halfway through December 2022. There's 2 weeks left of the year, and so let's talk about what's coming over the next few months. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and give this video a like. Make sure you turn on your bell icon next to the word subscribe, and let's jump right in to some housing market forecasting. Let's jump right into this because there's so much to talk about. We're going to talk about 2023 because there's only 2 weeks left of 2022. Merry Christmas, by the way. That's coming up here in just a few days. So let's talk about what's been going on over the past 2 or 3 years. And let's take it back a few years to give you some confidence in knowing what you're talking about. So if you are a real estate agent, you're going to love this video. If you're a homeowner about to sell, then you need to know what's really going on. And of course, a lot of you are buyers. And so let's talk about going into 2023, what's about to happen. Experts have been telling us in 2020, thanks to COVID, that the housing market would collapse. It would tank, we would go into a depression, and life was over as we knew it. They got it wrong. Well, they said the same thing, they postponed it for 2021. Said it's going to housing market crash, worst crash ever, it's coming. Of course, that's the opposite of what happened. 2022, the year we're in now, finishing up, biggest housing market crash. It's still supposed to happen. If you watch much CNN or even Fox, housing market crash, it's always coming. But it still hasn't happened because they don't know what they're talking about. Let's talk about what's coming in 2023. Now, I will tell you right now, the market is not going to crash. The housing market is not positioned to crash. I'm going to show you why. I'm going to tell you why, the information that they don't seem to understand. Now, could it crash in the future? Of course it could. And I'm going to tell you what would make it crash. What would make it crash? And why it's not positioned to crash right now. Let's talk about some of these things. These are the hot points I'm going to talk about on this video. By the way, please subscribe. Please give this video a like. Turn on your bell icon so you don't miss out on future videos. By the way, if you are thinking about a career in real estate, this is the best career ever imaginable. I've been selling homes full-time for 25 years. Yes, I was 5 years old when I first started. But no, I'm 54. I was 29 when I first got licensed. A couple years ago, I got my broker's license in Missouri. I'm licensed in Missouri and Kansas with Keller Williams Platinum Partners. I say that to keep real estate commissions happy. And so let's jump right into this topic. Let's talk about supply and demand. That's what a lot of this comes down to. Every product is based on supply and demand. So is the housing market. Now, this is not about the stock market. This is the housing market. So let's talk about where we were when I first got licensed back in 1997. Gosh, that's a long time ago. We quickly went into 2000. Now, we bought my first house, my wife and I, a couple weeks before the World Trade Center got hit in 2001. And what happened? Leading up to that, it was a pretty decent market. Interest rates, when we bought our first house in 2001, we paid 8.25% of our interest rate. That's just what rates were. Life was good. Life was really good. And so we hit 2001 and World Trade Center gets hit. And the country goes into chaos. Homeland Security is born. Airlines revamp everything. You remember how bad it was? And then over about an 18-month period, the government starts issuing all kinds of stimulus packages, everything to stimulate the economy so we don't go into a depression. And we don't. And that is a correction. Definitely a housing correction. Prices dip for about 18 months, maybe 2 years max, and it starts turning around. And we go meet, and now during that time frame, between 01 and 06, interest rates drop over and over and over and over. And my wife and I, we refinanced our house that we bought in '01 4 times in a 5-year period. Now, '04 and '05 and '06 are the best real estate years of all time. For construction, it's off the chart. It's so good. It's so good. There are shopping centers or strip centers being built. I guess there aren't any more shopping centers, but strip centers being built. There are Walmarts everywhere. You probably saw multiple neighborhoods all over your suburbs, all under construction at the same time, generating new high schools, lots of new elementaries. That is our market in '05 and '06. But thanks to a combination of two things, horrible bad loans that should never have been issued, are issued on a large scale. They did stated only income loans. Remember all this? Stated only. You don't have to prove it. You just have to state it. I make $150,000 a year. I'm stating that. Give me the loan. And you don't have to verify it. Stated only income loans. There were lots of those. Interest only adjustable arms. Well, you're never going to pay, or at least not at first, you're not going to pay the principal. You're only going to pay interest at first. There were lots of these loans. They were encouraged. Interest, especially the arms, because, rates in here, they're not very low, and the market is thriving. There is so much new construction. But thanks to a bubble in the housing market caused by loans. Now, what caused that? You have so many people adjusting that are buying in 2004, 2005, and 2006 with an adjustable arm. A lot of those were 3-year arms. And they are not really being fully qualified, but they're being qualified based on that arm, based on that short-term lower rate. And so 3 years into that, their low rate adjusts, and it adjusts higher when that 3-year rate lock runs out, and they adjust at a much higher rate. Now, these lenders were bad, many of them, and they did not prepare for what they would afford when the rate goes up. And so now the rate adjusts up, and a lot of people on a widespread scale cannot begin to afford the payment. And so 2007, it starts to turn down a little bit. 2008, it is still going down. 2009, we are still down. And then 2010, we hit the bottom in a crashed market. The housing market collapsed. I'm a real estate agent during all this. There was one point in time, there were over 1 million foreclosures at the same time. There were so many houses, that's just foreclosures. There were so many other houses on the market with the foreclosures, we didn't have enough buyers to buy them all. And that's why houses sat on the market for over a year at that point. And so we hit 2010, the bottom, and we hold there at the bottom for a good 2 or 3 more years, trying to cycle through the mess. The mess caused by 2 things. The housing market itself crashed its own housing market, and mass layoffs. There are mass layoffs, thousands of people out of work. Do we see mass layoffs now? No. We see the opposite. We see the opposite of that. We see one of the strongest markets ever in history when it comes to jobs. Now, the current administration is trying to change that. They want layoffs. They need more unemployment because the housing or the job market is too strong. Everybody's hiring, and there's not enough workers taking these jobs. We have the population, but a lot of them are out doing Uber. They're doing DoorDash. It's a different kind of a job market than it once was. And of course, we have a record number of real estate agents. That's where everybody is. Everybody that should be at Wendy's and McDonald's working, they're all in real estate. We have too many realtors right now. Now, everybody says, there's always enough houses to go around. No, there's not. And I'll talk to you about that in just a moment. We hit the bottom in 2010, and that's the prediction that people think we're heading to now. It's not possible. We won't hit that because it's not the same kind of scenario that the housing market's in right now. And then, of course, time passes, and we hit 2018 and 2019. We are in a very strong seller's market. Things are appreciating nicely. This is a buyer's market. Down in here, this is an extreme buyer's market. But from here down is a buyer's market. The difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market: a buyer's market is when the buyers have control. There are too many listings. There's too much inventory. And a buyer can come in and offer a low price. They can make the seller fix all kinds of things. They can make the seller pay their closing costs and a warranty. The buyers are in control, and the buyers are going to get whatever they pretty much want in a buyer's market. Because sellers are desperate. They'll do whatever it takes to get their home to sell. Price reduction after price reduction. And of course, values are falling during all this too. In a seller's market, what we had here and what we have here is a strong seller's market. That means there's very low inventory. Very few buyers, or we have lots of buyers. We have lots and lots of buyers fighting over very low inventory. In fact, during this, COVID was the best thing the housing market has ever seen, because it took what was already a strong seller's market and intensified it. It shrunk our inventory, and for whatever reasons, the administration continued to lower interest rates and lower them to the point we hit the lowest interest rates of all time. Record low interest rates, which got too low in a housing market where we didn't need low interest rates like that. Housing market's already thriving on its own. We didn't need to add fuel onto the fire of that seller's market and make it even stronger. But that's what's happened, and that's where we are. So, you could have refinanced this same time last year and lock in a 30-year fixed at 2 3/4%. Can you imagine that? This same time last December in 2021, that's what rates were. And now here, since then, they have more than doubled. In some parts of the country, those rates almost tripled in less than a year. Now, thank goodness they've come off of that a little bit in the last month. But that's where we are. And so a strong seller's market is what we have now. That means huge amount of demand over very little supply is a seller's market. There's some other reasons going on that are fueling that. We are still in a seller's market. Now, it's slowed down a little bit. So if you're a real estate agent and you've been selling homes over the last 3 months, you have felt it. Houses are not selling in a day. They're not selling in 2 days or 3 days typically. They're taking a week or two. Oh my gosh. That means we got to reduce the price. If it's taken longer than a week, something's wrong. What's wrong? It didn't sell in a day. I didn't get 40 showings my first night with 15 offers. And that's the market that we've had for 2 years. We're very spoiled. So if you're a new realtor, you've come into the market in just something that's just not, it's just not normal and it's not healthy. And so we are correcting. That's what's going on right now, is a correction. Now, if you're thinking of buying a house, this is the most perfect time. Buy it quickly. Because as soon as we get into spring in 2023, it's going to go nuts all over again. And we're probably not going to see the crazy appreciation that we've been seeing. I think it's going to be more flat, but it's probably not going to be going down. I think in 2023, it's going to still rise with more appreciation, because springtime for most of the country is the busiest market of the year. March, April, and May are the 3 best months of the year. They always are. They have since I was born. Certainly within my 25-year career, it's the same every year. Spring for most of the country, especially here in the Midwest, is our busiest season. Now, at the same time, if we do see some rates start dropping a little more, hopefully going into spring, it's going to create another crazy wild seller's market. That means if you're a buyer, buy now when the market's a little bit slower and you don't have to compete against so many other buyers right now. Because when we get into March and April and May, I think it's going to go nuts all over again. Another huge seller's market, because we have very low inventory still. Very low supply, very high demand. Now let's talk about a few of these other things. Too many realtors. We have a record number of realtors, folks. It's the highest number of realtors ever before in history. Why? Because it's the best career. It just is. I mean, some of us who sell a lot of homes for a long time have enjoyed the most awesome housing market. It's a dream job. In fact, I'll just share with you, The American Dream is a TV show, and it's been nominated for an Emmy. It's out of San Diego, California, and they do The American Dream in a lot of different cities around the country. Well, they brought it here to Kansas City this summer, and it's called Selling Kansas City. It operates in a lot of other cities. I get to be one of the hosts. And so this is my new suit. This is my TV show suit, because I'm not used to wearing very nice clothes, because we just don't have a place to wear them. But I have a, what do you think of my suit? Because I'm not used to this kind of, anyway, it's an opportunity brought on out of this neat housing market we're in. So if you go into my real estate channel, these videos you're watching on, check out some of the videos. It's really neat. It's a lifestyle show about things that makes Kansas City such a great place to live. And so you see a lot of community type of interviews and a lot of beautiful homes. Oh my gosh, a couple of the homes I've got to do interviews at are mind-blowing. They're multi-million-dollar homes. So let's talk about too many realtors. Now, what you're going to see, this is also a career with a very high turnover rate. So if you're a brand new realtor, you're going to want to subscribe, because most of my videos are like this: how to make a lot of money in real estate. If you're a homeowner and you want to get into investing, those topics are coming out here over the next few weeks. How to make a lot of money in real estate investing. And yes, I have investment property too. You need to do that. So too many realtors, a lot of that's going to fix itself, because we all have to renew our board dues. So the Kansas City board, or whatever state you're in, the Seattle board, the Dallas board, every single city has your own local board of realtors, and we all have to join that. That's what provides our MLS. That's a few $100s a year. Agents who didn't sell anything this year will probably not renew. They'll quit. And we'll see a purging. So the Great Purge is going on, because those are due in December. And so this is the month of the Great Purge. Every year, we weed through a lot of realtors who didn't sell, and a lot more get in. Now, let's talk about some of the kind of scary things I see for 2023. Some sad things. One of them is a lack of first-time buyers. Now, if you are young, and many of you are, because this is YouTube and it's driven to, a lot of young people. If you're a first-time buyer, buy a home. Don't worry about the rate. Buy a home. Begin the process of locking in yourself into home ownership, because it is the number one, by far, the number one way of building wealth in the United States. It's through home ownership. In fact, if you ask pretty much anyone who is at retirement age and ask them how much they're worth, and they'll say, I'm worth $1.4 million. I'm 69 years old. I'm worth $1.4 million. A lot of that, probably one of the biggest, maybe their retirement account, but if not that, then their number one asset giving them that worth, that value of their wealth, is their home. Because at that point in time, it's probably paid for. Maybe they own 4 or 5 duplexes, and at that point in life, they're all paid for. They're worth a fortune, because at one time they were a first-time buyer, and they jumped in and bought a home. So the problem with this that we're seeing, for the first time in history, we have the lowest percentage of our population of what should be a first-time buyer are not buying a home. Too many young people are renters. They are staying renters. It's the millennial generation are not buying homes. And part of that is cultural. It's how they've grown up. I don't know why they are not learning that they are going to be missing out on wealth. But right now we're seeing too many renters compared to what these first-time buyer percentages should be. So if you are a real estate agent, encourage the young people who have a job, who would qualify, to get out of renting and get into home ownership. Now, wherever you live, you're probably seeing a lot of apartment complexes under construction, lots of new apartment complexes in your suburbs being built everywhere. And what happens? The rent is off the chart, and they're renting them as soon as they build them because of a lack of first-time buyers. They're renting instead. For the first time ever, we see more corporate investors than ever before. A lot of these big apartment buildings you're seeing, they are multi-million dollar projects. They are not owned by anybody in your city. These are out-of-state investors. They are huge conglomerates of corporate real estate investors. And they are building massive apartment projects all over the country because they know the demand for rent is much higher than it's ever been because of a lack of first-time buyers. Part of that problem, these first-time buyers are having to compete against the investors. And so the lowest priced homes, your entry point in your city, is being gobbled up by investors. And you got a homeowner, wouldn't they rather sell cash to a cash buyer? Because these investors take them as is. They've been paying full price. Some of them have been paying more than full price because the demand is so high over very low supply. They are feeding into this crazy seller's market too, driving up prices also. It doesn't matter to them. They're going to rent them as long as they cash flow, and they will because renters are paying more money than ever to rent. So that's why you should be owning rental property, because rent is at an all-time high. Getting all kinds of things. Now let's toss into this, the lack of new home inventory. So back in 2006, my wife and I, you'll love this, we built our dream home, which thank goodness we still live in. We didn't lose it when the market got bad. Of course, my income dropped by half during this, but I still survived. I made it through this market. More than half the realtors quit over this 5-year period. You know, we had title companies quit. This is what a collapsed market did. This is why when people compare this to this, they don't have the slightest clue what they're talking about. Don't listen to that. That's fear. That is not going to happen. You're going to make yourself paranoid and afraid over a situation that is not going to happen. These people, they're idiots. Don't listen to people that don't know what they're talking about. This is what made this so horrible. Now, I will say this, a couple concerns you should be looking at if they would happen. One is credit card debt. Credit card debt is soaring. It's at a 15-year high, partially because of young people renting. A lot of this mindset of millennials is, I want it now. I want it now. I don't care what it costs. I'm just going to buy it. And so because of that mindset of not investing into themselves, they're just going to buy stuff or pay other people to do things for them. Credit card debt is at an all-time high. Now, I don't know what that will do to the banking industry over the next few years. As long as everybody can pay it, it doesn't matter so much to the banking industry. However, if we go into the one thing I want you to really watch are layoffs. If we go into unemployment caused by a lot of job layoffs, that will have impact, depending on how big the unemployment would get, because that will change the demand and the supply. If the demand for housing starts falling, then these will shift. They will change. Now, if that happens, we could still be in a good seller's market because we're operating at almost a record low inventory. We could have a lot more inventory and still be in a seller's market. That's what I want you to understand. That's the one thing I want you to really watch for next year. If we go into a season of a lot of layoffs, that could change our market into a buyer's market. Remember what happened back in these years. You remember what happened back in 2009, 2010, 2011? Let me tell you some of the things that happened to put this whole thing in perspective for you. It got so bad during these years. The city of Detroit filed bankruptcy. Do you remember all this? The city of Detroit was so bad it could no longer pay its bills. Detroit is a major player. and the city itself filed bankruptcy. We had bailouts given to almost everybody to keep us out from getting worse and worse so the economy could correct itself. Remember all this? Back then, going up into this, which was an amazing market, there were 4 lenders that pretty much controlled the country. 4 lenders. Number 1 lender in the country was Countrywide Home Loans. Remember that name? A lot of you young people since 2006 have never heard of Countrywide. Countrywide was the number 1 biggest lender in the United States. It wasn't a little one, it was the biggest. Countrywide filed bankruptcy because of this mess. Number 2 back then was Bank of America. Bank of America bought the remnants, the debt, the mess of what was left of Countrywide and absorbed Countrywide into Bank of America. Number 3 was Wachovia Bank. Wachovia Bank filed bankruptcy because they couldn't begin to sustain the mess of a collapsed, crashed market. Wachovia was, and then Wells Fargo was number 4. Wells Fargo bought the remnant of what was left of Wachovia Bank. And so the top 4 shrunk into numbers 1 and 2 and inherited the mess of debt and foreclosures. And they've recovered. We've cycled through this. This is old history now. This is your future. And the future looks bright. It's a good future. Next year's going to be an amazing year in real estate. It really is. If you are new to real estate, get your real estate business going. Get yourself out there. Market yourself to your friends and your family and your coworker, everybody you know, and capture this. The one thing I want you to always remember, people always need housing. Always. People are always buying and selling. No matter if the market's good or if the market's really bad, wherever you are, people always need housing. People always buy and sell. There are opportunities coming if we would go through a dip, which would be great for a lot of investors and first-time buyers, because then they finally get a chance to get an opportunity. That's a perfect time to buy. So if you think the market is going to dip on values, then get your cash together. Get ready to buy some deals. If you think it's going to keep thriving, then buy something now and enjoy some appreciation. Either way, you win. It's a great housing market. So that's where we are. That's where we are. That's where we're headed into 2023. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe, give this video a like, and happy house hunting.